Coming up on Lawmakers, the Senate passes a bill that would establish a wide-ranging statewide smoking ban. Hope Scholarship legislation passes out of a Senate committee amidst charges and countercharges from Republicans and Democrats. And a compromise is reached in the regulation of the payday lending industry. Those stories and more are coming up next.
Live from Atlanta, this is Lawmakers for Thursday, March 4th. Here are your hosts, Gerald Bryant and Nwandi Lawson.
Good evening, everyone. Also on tonight's broadcast, Governor Perdue announces that Atlanta will host the Titan Games.
And Representative Jeanette Jameson introduces a resolution that would define marriage in Georgia. But our top story tonight, a statewide smoking ban.
By a vote of 45 to 7, the state Senate today voted to ban smoking in most public places in Georgia. Bars would be exempted under the bill. So would businesses other than restaurants employing 15 or fewer people. The original bill, sponsored by Senator Don Thomas, a family practice physician, would have allowed almost no restrictions, but Thomas supported some amendments in hopes of getting enough support to pass the bill. Senator Thomas put a different spin on the Old Testament book of Ecclesiastes to make his argument to ban public smoking in Georgia.
A time for silence and a time to speak. A time to smoke and a time to refrain from smoking. Today, it's time to speak for expectant mothers, the unborn infants, children, teenagers, senior citizens, all ages. It's time to speak for asthmatics, cardiac patients, diabetics, hypertensives. It's not only time to speak, it's time to take action, to allow every Georgian the right to breathe smoke-free air.
Employees in our state who work in smoke-filled environments have a 25% to 50% risk of suffering from cancer-related illnesses. This bill is a business-friendly bill. The people of Georgia support this effort. Smokers and non-smokers alike understand that it's time for our state to make a policy shift.
That was Senator Kasim Reeb, who was a co-sponsor of the smoking ban. Senator Don Balfour supported the smoking ban, but said he thought it could get more votes if bars were exempted.
And to be honest with you, if you defeat it, you won't hurt my feelings. How about that? Here's my amendment, defeat it. My amendment, I think, makes it more palatable to pass in this body. That's my only reason for it. Because I believe if we didn't exempt bars, if we said no smoking in any bars, in any restaurants, it would not affect business at all. It won't. I know it won't. But I'm trying to get 29 votes out of this body. And if we can do it by exempting bars, then let's do it.
The exemption for bars passed. That amendment also included an exemption for cars and trucks. Smoking would also be allowed in businesses employing fewer than 15 or fewer people. Senate Bill 507 passed with only 7 no votes and heads for the House.
Also today, passage of House Bill 1138 could mean fines for drivers who light up with a child on board. Violators would be fined $15 per offense for smoking with the windows rolled up while transporting a child in a car seat. A similar measure made it to conference committee last year but failed to pass before the session adjourned. Representative John Douglas questioned the bill sponsor about how this measure would affect privacy rights.
What's the next logical step here? Is the next logical step tell people they can't smoke at home?
You're referring to just smoking?
Well, that's what this bill concerns. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Well, you know, several years ago, I voted to put children in restraint seats, and I never have felt bad about that. Years before my time, we required children to be vaccinated. This is a safety issue. I wish you'd look at the information I put on your desk. And
yes, sir.
As far as what's next, I don't know, unless it's something to protect children, and then I'd probably be for it.
I would. Will the gentleman further yield?
Sure.
Is it more dangerous to have a smoke inhaled in an automobile than it is inside a house?
Well, I wouldn't even attempt to get in anyone's house and what they do there. You know, you and I and everyone in this body wouldn't even consider that.
The measure would impact primarily children under 4 who are required by state law to be restrained in car seats. House Bill 1138 passed by a vote of 120 to 39. It goes to the Senate.
And the Senate Higher Education Committee today passed a Hope Scholarship bill that preserves books and fees unless lottery revenues decline. The new committee proposal passed today would set triggers for any dips in the lottery reserve. Those triggers would kick in at the end of the fiscal year. Committee Chairman Bill Hamrick explains how that mechanism would work.
If the year-end balance goes down from the previous year, then we will cap fees at $500. If it goes down again the next year, then we will eliminate fees altogether. And if it goes down for a third year, we will eliminate payment for books.
Governor Sonny Perdue's office calls the proposal encouraging. Lieutenant Governor Mark Taylor, who has been fighting to keep books and fees covered under the HOPE program, disagrees.
Strongly opposed to this proposal. This is a very dark day for the students of Georgia and their families. This could be the beginning of the end of the Hope Scholarship in Georgia.
Eliminating books and fees was a recommendation made by the bipartisan Hope Commission. Senate Majority Leader Bill Stevens today accused the Lieutenant Governor of politicizing Hope Scholarships.
Mark Taylor is politicizing the Hope Scholarship and the bipartisan commission findings for his own political gain in his campaign for governor in 2006. His comments, his media tour, his visits to college, and his constant focus make it clear to me that given the choice of saving Hope now or having it as an issue in the 2006 campaign, he would choose the latter. That's wrong, it's short-sighted, and it's bad for the people of Georgia.
Lieutenant Governor Taylor accused Republicans of creating a smokescreen, saying books and fees would not be funded anyway unless Governor Perdue revised his budget estimate, and the Lieutenant Governor denied any political motives.
Nothing could be further from the truth. This is not a political issue for me. I was here at the beginning of the creation of the Hope Scholarship Program. I saw people oppose the program, and now my message to the people of Georgia is the fox has entered the henhouse, and people who were opposed to the creation of this program are now attempting to destroy it.
Again, the Senate Higher Education Committee passed a Hope Scholarship bill today that would cover books and fees unless lottery revenues decline to predetermined levels. The bill goes to the Senate Rules Committee.
And the House votes today to make the Internet a place to buy lottery tickets, a move the bill sponsors say will increase revenue for the Hope Scholarship and the pre-K program. Representative Terry Bernard explains the benefits of House Bill 1272.
So the Georgia lottery tickets may be purchased with retailers or online by means of cash, debit cards, electronic transfer, and limited to $5 per day for credit card purchases. The bill is designed to increase revenues for Hope so that Georgia college students may continue to enjoy the highest capacity of funding for their education here in Georgia.
The measure was adopted 131 to 32. It moves to the Senate, where it's likely to face opposition. Senate Majority Leader Bill Stevens says Senate Republicans cannot support the bill.
I do think there are questions, particularly even though it's a Republican proposal, I'll tell you there are big questions about the online lottery and whether or not, number one, legally you can even do that. And number two, if it goes in the way that it's proposed, it would be years before the revenues came in. And number three, you don't know what the revenues would be when they do come in. So there are real questions there about that.
In other news, the House today completes legislative work on a plan to regulate payday lenders. Agreement on a conference committee report for Senate Bill 157 means the measure needs only the governor's approval to become law. House Banks and Banking Chair Johnny Floyd explained that the current legislation is supported by the NAACP, AARP, and the Attorney General's office. He told his colleagues that the future of military bases in Georgia was on the line if Senate Bill 157 did not pass.
We are faced with the possibility of losing some of our bases in Georgia if we don't address this problem this legislative session. The consumer is the one that is being protected. You'll hear a lot of comment about the consumer not being protected. That's what this bill is all about, to protect the Georgia citizen and the consumer that uses this type of loans.
But Representative Earl Earhart, who lobbied in the mid-90s to keep Dobbins Air Force Base open, contends the bill has nothing to do with base closings.
There are 8 criteria that BRAC considers when it looks at whether or not to close a military base. And guess what? There's not a mention of payday lenders, current and future mission capabilities, availability and condition of land and facilities, ability to accommodate contingency and mobilization, the cost of operations, the extent and timing of potential cost and savings of the years and the realignment savings, the economic impact on existing communities, the environmental impact. That's the 8 things that BRAC can consider. That's it.
Again, the House and Senate today agreed to a conference committee report on the payday lending bill. The vote was 132 to 38 in the House. Senate Bill 157 now needs the governor's signature to become law.
And as SB 157 goes to Governor Perdue's office, payday lending agencies may not have given up their fight. Representative Tyrone Brooks says he will sponsor legislation to repeal the law. Lawmakers Jesse Freeman is live with more. Jesse.
Well, thank you, Nwandi. Senator Vincent Ford held a press conference this morning to encourage House members to vote for SB 157. Consumer activists were on hand, including Deputy Director of the Atlanta branch of the NAACP, Michael Julian Bond, who criticized House members opposed to the bill, including Representative Tyrone Brooks.
I'm ecstatic. It is a great day for consumers in Georgia, and I want to personally thank every member of the House and Senate that stood up for consumers.
State Insurance Commissioner John Oxendine regulates industrial lending in Georgia. He says SB 157 is the most important consumer protection bill of the year, but opponents say it regulates only one sector of the industry.
Seeing that there could be the possibility, I have opened up a store in South Carolina, and I have polled my customers in the past few weeks that if payday advance was taken out of Georgia, what would they do? And the majority of them said that they would follow me an hour and 10 minutes away to South Carolina.
But right now, the way this bill has moved through the legislature, it's really a one-sided proposition, and it's not fair to the consumers.
Though Representative Tyrone Brooks is a renowned civil rights leader, on this issue, he is at odds with the NAACP.
And I will remind our elected officials, particularly those in the Black Caucus, well, all of our state representatives, we want their support. But the NAACP is going to put out a report card on this and other issues. And just because you're a member of the Black Caucus, that doesn't mean that the NAACP won't come after you in July.
Michael Bond's father, Julian Bond, authored an opposing opinion to Brooks in today's Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Brooks questions the organization's ties with the lending industry.
I'm not one that would allow either industry to control my thought. I just am concerned about the consumer. So we need reports, but we also need reports on civil rights organizations that get into bed with big businesses and have their leaders writing op-ed pieces to influence the course of legislation when they have a direct interest in that particular organization or industry.
Now, it's important that I mention I talked with Michael Julian Bond today, and he says that neither he nor his father have any financial interest in any of the loan companies in question. Reporting live, I'm Jesse Freeman for Lawmakers.
Thanks, Jesse.
This morning, Representative Jeanette Jameson made a point of personal privilege to introduce another version of legislation that would make same-sex marriage unconstitutional in Georgia. However, Senator Mike Quatz says her version, House Resolution 1470, guts his same-sex marriage proposal, which failed in the House last week, but on Monday received a majority vote for reconsideration. David Zelski joins us live from the Capitol with details of that story. David.
Well, thanks, Gerald. Representative Jameson says the problem with Senator Crott's version, House Resolution 595, is Section B, which contains language and some material that she says the courts will not approve.
Senate Resolution 595 has language in it that would threaten the constitutionality, tie it up in the courts. We're promising the people an opportunity to vote on this question. Let's give it to them in a basic form that can clear the courts, be on the ballot in November.
When you take B out, you're saying that you will recognize documents, licenses, unions from other states. And that's what we're trying to prevent here in Georgia.
We do not need to take a chance on losing an existing law that protects us by taking into court a piece of legislation like 595. Now with House Resolution 1470, we have an alternative that has the basic question on it. I think that, as I said before, I think it's time now that we pass that question out. It begs the question and at the same time protects it from the courts.
It just basically guts the bill, and there's really no point in passing it that way. So I'd say that basically if we had the votes, we'd be opposed to that.
Now, Representative Bill Hembry, who is carrying Senator Crott's legislation in the House, says if the vote were held on the House floor today, it will receive 121 of the 120 votes needed to get that two-thirds majority. House Resolution 595 has been held up in the House Rules Committee since the vote to reconsider took place on Monday. Reporting live, I'm David Zelski for Lawmakers.
Thank you very much, David.
House and Senate differences in the mid-year 04 budget are going to be worked out in conference committee. With one dissenting vote, the House today rejected Senate changes to the amended 04 budget. The budget includes more than $300 million in cuts, and more may have to be added. The state's chief financial officer, Tommy Hill, yesterday announced that February tax collections were down $17.5 million compared with 1 year ago. Hill says tax collections must increase at a rate of 8.5% for the last 4 months of the fiscal year to meet the budget.
A competition between Olympic athletes in 7 major sports will be coming soon to Atlanta. Today, Governor Sonny Perdue, along with the United States Olympic Committee and the Atlanta Sports Council, announced that Atlanta will be host city for the Titan Games. Lawmakers Chrissy Thrasher joins us live with more on this story. Chrissy.
Well, Gerald, Governor Perdue and those sponsoring the event say Georgia is creating a strong Olympic legacy. In 1996, millions gathered for the Olympic Games. Now in June, thousands are expected to come to Atlanta to see the Titan Games.
Actually, the largest gathering of U.S. Olympic athletes in the United States since our games of '96. They're coming here either to qualify or to get ready for the Athens Games, which will be the following month. So we'll have a lot of world-class athletes here.
Those athletes will include competitors in boxing, fencing, judo, karate, shot put, taekwondo, weightlifting, and wrestling.
This is a multi-year opportunity for us, certainly in 04, again in 05, and then it's actually a 3-year partnership. The 3rd year has not yet been determined, but we will bring it back for a 3rd time to Atlanta.
Governor Sonny Perdue was among those attending the announcement. According to the chairman of the Atlanta Sports Council, the Titan Games are coming to Atlanta because of Georgia's strong connection with the Olympics.
And this is a USOC-sponsored event. The Titan Games last year was the first year for the event. And given the relationship that we have with USOC and the tremendous legacy we have here, both in terms of venues as well as the human legacy, Atlanta just made great sense for the Titan Games to come to Atlanta. So we're very, very excited.
And the Titan Games will be held June 18th through the 20th. Reporting live, I'm Chrissy Thrasher for Lawmakers.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Well, the Senate today voted to beef up the Steer It and Clear It law. Here's Senator Leanne Levitan.
This simple bill is a simple change to our Steer It and Clear It law. Adopted in 1999, the law says that motorists involved in wrecks on multi-lane highways are required to move their vehicles off the side of the road. We want to change that to apply to all public roads in Georgia. The purpose of the Steer and Clear is twofold. First, it's an attempt to save lives. Police officers will tell you that the odds to increase tremendously, that you will get hurt if you get out of your vehicle to survey the damage. Second, when there is a vehicle in the road, it causes traffic tie-ups, as we also well know.
Senate Bill 525, the Steer It and Clear It bill, passed without opposition and goes to the House.
Senator Sam Zamarripa held a press conference today in support of Senate Bill 597. SB 597 allows motorcycles to be exempt from toll road payments. Currently, motorcyclists pay the same as automobiles. Senator Zamarripa emphasized this bill will benefit the environment. More than 120,000 people ride motorcycles in the state of Georgia, and Zamarripa stressed that this bill is a matter of road safety.
Motorcyclists can't reach in their pocket to pull out a quarter or turn around and look into a tray to find a quarter to pay the tollway or 50 cents. So this provides a safety mechanism. Also, many of the accidents that occur at starts and stops for motorcycles. So this provides continuity and safety for the riders.
Senate Bill 597 is a bipartisan effort of Senator Zamarripa and Senator Joey Brush and is currently in the Senate Transportation Committee.
Legislation that would preempt city councils from mandating minimum wage and benefit requirements for contracted city employees passed the Senate Insurance and Labor Committee today. Lawmakers Christy Moran has more on this story.
The City of Atlanta is currently considering a living wage requirement
for all companies that provide services to the city on a contract basis. Senate President Pro Tem Eric Johnson is sponsoring legislation to preempt city governments from passing such requirements on local businesses.
Well, regardless of the economic debate as to whether or not you can raise the minimum wage and it doesn't actually hurt the low-end wages, which I believe fundamentally allowing government to force through a mechanism what you pay your people and what benefits you give them is just wrong.
Senator Vincent Fort says that he opposes the legislation.
The Georgia General Assembly has more important things to do by dealing with education, health care, and other issues, so that in unemployment, I'm more concerned with the 70,000 people who made first-time unemployment claims in January of this year than I am with a living wage ordinance. The state of Georgia has a lot more to do than mess with the city of Atlanta's business.
The living wage requirement that the City Council is considering would raise the minimum wage from $10.50 to $12, depending on benefit coverage. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Christy Moran.
Legislation that would create a water conservation incentive program for Georgia farmers passes out of the House Natural Resources and Environment Committee today. The bill will allow the state to appropriate money to the Soil and Water Conservation Service for water conservation measures. These measures would include building farm ponds, water diversion systems, and alternative watering systems. Senator Tommy Williams, the sponsor of the bill, explains what he calls the need for this legislation.
In our area, we have a moratorium on drilling wells. We've got a number of farmers down there that would like to irrigate now, but can't irrigate because they can't drill a well. And farming being as it is, they don't have the resources to either repair the dam they have or build a new pond. We would like to encourage some of the farmers to get out of the aquifer, which is pristine water that really needs to be used for potable purposes, and into lakes and reservoirs for irrigation purposes, but we simply don't have the incentives for them to do that.
Senate Bill 436 will not require the state to give money to the Soil and Water Conservation Service, but it will allow the state to use money from discretionary funds when they become available. The bill was given a due pass and moves to the House Rules Committee.
Governor Sonny Perdue's ethics reform bill was given a due pass by the Senate Ethics Committee today. Senate Bill 517 passed the committee earlier in the session, but was recommitted in order to hammer out details and take suggestions for changes. The governor's Senate floor leader, Preston Smith, presented the bill, and he explained to the committee why sweeping ethics reform is necessary.
It may be a little bit disingenuous to go to the public and say, we want to open up to you the process of lobbying in state government, but only for this small carved-out group of people. I mean, it seems to me that it makes more sense to say to the public, we're going to open up this process for you to see it, and we're going to open up all the way around, just like they do with the federal government. We're going to open it up for whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a non-lawyer, whether you're employed by an association or a large corporation, or whether you're a small business. We want the public to be able to see how government works and where the money is changing hands.
Senator Smith says much of the bill is modeled after the Federal Lobbyist Disclosure Act. Senate Bill 517 was given a due pass by committee substitute as amended and heads to the Senate floor.
Supporters of the 1956 flag with the Confederate battle emblem gathered on the front steps of the Capitol yesterday in protest of Tuesday's non-binding referendum, which did not include that flag as an option on the ballot. David Zelski has the story.
We are here. We will not be ignored.
About 50 devotees of Civil War heritage arrived with flags, signs, and banners in support of their cause.
It's not political correctness, but it's racism, bigotry, and an outright hatred or ignorance of the true Georgia history.
Even though the current Georgia flag, modeled after the first national flag of the Confederacy, won in Tuesday's election by a 3-to-1 ratio, these supporters of the 56 to 2001 flag say they were betrayed by people they helped elect, including Governor Perdue.
Since yesterday's phony and insulting referendum excluded the flag of choice of the majority of the citizens of Georgia, we simply reject the results as being meaningless and as a waste of taxpayers' time and money.
They also believe President George Bush has ignored their calls and have plans for his future arrivals to Georgia.
We encourage Southerners in every southern state to meet President Bush with a welcoming committee of signs, banners, and Confederate flags in every public appearance during his coming Southwide campaign for re-election in Dixie.
They also believe that if their flag were on the ballot on Tuesday, it would have received a majority vote. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm David Zelski.
In other news, the Senate Education Committee today recommended a bill that requires schools to provide notice to students before they reach their maximum number of allowable absences. Senate Bill 392 would also require students to provide their employers with a letter from the school indicating their attendance is in good standing. Failure to follow this Truancy Enforcement Act could lead to the loss of driver's licenses. Senate Bill 392 is similar to the governor's Senate Bill 428. Senator Preston Smith explains the differences between his bill and the governor's.
There are some exceptions built into my version, Senate Bill 392. The exceptions allow for an appeal to a court. It does not allow parents to bypass this, but it does allow a juvenile court to make a decision in the best interest of the minor, or if there's an undue hardship, or if the health and welfare of the minor taken into consideration, there ought to be for some reason a license issued, then the court is allowed to make that determination, but no one else.
Senate Bill 392 was given a due pass by the Education Committee and will now go to the Rules Committee.
The Senate today appointed conferees to help reach an agreement on the supplemental budget, and that brought Senator Regina Thomas to her feet.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 2nd District.
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. President.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that there are no women senators on this conference committee, and we know that women senators work much harder, we get paid less, and we need to be on that committee?
Very appropriate comments on Equal Pay Day at the Capitol.
A programming note, lawmakers will not be broadcast tomorrow evening because the Georgia General Assembly will be in recess. We invite you to tune in to the Georgia High School Association State Basketball Championships, which will be broadcast live on Georgia Public Television. Live coverage of the championships start at 3 p.m. tomorrow and continues on Saturday at 11 a.m. and on Sunday at 11 a.m. we invite you to tune in for the premiere broadcast of An Introduction to Love and Logic. I'll be live in the studio with parenting expert Jim Fay as he dispenses his practical, easy-to-use advice about building character in children and reducing the stress of parenting. That's An Introduction to Love and Logic this Sunday at 11 a.m. Lawmakers returns on Tuesday with all the latest from under the Gold Dome. Ever wanted to know how to replace air? They keep asking me this, to replace air vents, repair shutoff valves for a steam radiator. I'm sure someone is interested. Okay, then you'll want to stay tuned for Ask This Old House. That program is coming up next here on Georgia Public Broadcasting.
And that's our broadcast for the 29th day of the Georgia General Assembly. Thanks for joining us. I'm Wandy Lawson.
I'm Gerald Bryant. My wife asked me not to do that. For everyone here at Lawmakers, have a great weekend, and we will see you on Tuesday.
Good night.